I'm Christoph Steck from Telefonica. If you wonder why you get the German accent when someone from Telefonica speaks, you might know that there's a football match going on in Madrid tonight. So, of course, the only one who volunteered to go to Brussels today was the German one. So, that's the reason why I'm here. Having said that, I think it's a fascinating debate, and thanks very much for the IF to host it. I think it's a good tradition here that we have an open debate in the IF, and we should also tackle issues which are, of course, difficult and complex. And this debate for sure is difficult and complex. And I can just agree to what was already said by previous speakers, that this is an issue which needs careful consideration. And I would like to start with actually a positive note. I think we would agree that the internet and the digital revolution, whatever you might call it, had actually created a fantastic new environment which gives more competition, gives more choice to consumers, and in general creates a very positive impact on what we can do in our societies and economies. I think the reason for that is that we have converged sectors. We used to have separate media sector, separate telco sector, separate internet sector, and this all merged now into some kind of a mega sector, and you might call it digital economy or whatever you might call it. But this is a service sector where basically companies compete across sectors and go and try to offer the best to the consumer. So we have actually much more competition in that big sector. And I think also this creates the positive effect for consumers. Every one of us used to know that we could have a mobile phone, we could have calling and SMS, and now you can create actually by downloading an application and so on, you can have different possibilities to send messages, talk to others, and so on and so forth. This is actually all very positive. So I think we should start with that notion, and I would agree to what's just said, that this is very good. The problem is a little bit that, to be very honest here as well, that Europe has not really performed very well in that. I mean, Europe as a continent, as a market, is still the biggest maybe digital market in the world, and we have fantastic big size, but we're consuming services. There's not a lot of production of digital services in Europe, and I will not go into the reasons for that. There are a lot of people thinking of why that's happening, but I think we have to be realistic that it has been disappointing that since the internet was created, there has not been one global champion, in the internet sector being created from Europe. There's no one. I mean, since the World Wide Web was created in the 90s, there had been no one. Maybe you can even go back to the IP protocol in the beginning of the 70s, and you will not even find someone which would today compete in what we call the Champions League of the digital markets. This has happened in other parts of the world. It has for sure happened in the USA and California. It also happened in China. It has also happened in places like even Russia and Korea, for example, but not in Europe. And this is just a reflection we should all be aware of and be honest. I think that in the end, when you look at that scenario and you say now as a policymaker, what can we do? What can we do from here on? This needs to be in the focus. We might have missed the first wave of innovation in the digital sector, but there is a second chance. I think there's a second wave coming. There's something called the industrial internet coming, and I think this is the chance for the European industry. Having said that, we in Telefonica sat down last year and we said, let's create a kind of holistic view of the challenges we see, and we created something which is called a digital manifesto, a catchy word for basically trying to give a bigger view on what's going on and what we, from our point of view, receive as the challenges for our customers. And that's important. I mean, this is not about only the companies, it's about customers, about consumers, and what they receive as well as good and as bad in this new world. And we came to in the end to three big issues. I mean, the three big issues we have are, first of all, we want to connect everyone to the internet. I mean, we're speaking here, everyone in this room would use internet, I suppose, on a regular basis, but this is not happening, not even across Europe, and for sure not in the world. So 2/3 are still unconnected, and for us as a global company, that's a big issue. The second, the issue of the open internet. How can we keep it open? And the third issue is then, how can we create what we would call digital confidence, which is around privacy and security, that people really trust, using digital services. And I think these are the three big challenges we see, and then they are all linked to something which we call the level playing field, or how the rules need to change to be adapted to this new environment. And I think that in the end, I will just tackle now, due to time, on the open internet, because this is, I think, really a key issue. Here, what we see is that the internet we use today is not the internet we used yesterday. Yesterday, we all used a computer, we had a fixed connection, and we used the internet through browsers and so on. Today, we are using the internet through mobile devices. This is, in the outcome, we call it mobile internet. It's a huge change. We should be aware that this is a total different economic and also economic world we're in. It starts with that this is linked to different underlying software. It starts with that it's linked to other manufacturers and producers, and also the usage itself is different. I mean, before that, we used to type in a search query into Google, and you might do that still on your computer. You will not do that on your mobile phone. You will use an application. So what we have is that we and this is the evolution happening across the world. It's happening even faster in other parts of the world. For example, in Latin America, where we are operating, that people will never even know the fixed internet. They will just know the mobile internet, just the internet based on smartphone usage, and it's a different world. You would try not to search for an article on media. So you will click on your Facebook line of your friends when they kind of highlight something, or on Twitter or whatever it is. So you would rather click and not kind of type. And this is a big change. So why is that so huge? Because currently what we see, and this is where we go then into the debate of platforms, is that this new world we develop on smartphones is based on predominantly two operating systems. And these two operating systems are the ones everyone is using today to access the internet, and everyone will use in the foreseeable future to access the internet. So this creates, together with the linkage of an operating system to an app store, to an application, a totally new competitive situation we have to be aware about. And I think that when we speak about these dynamics, we should in the end have that in mind, that we are not in a web-based world anymore. We are in an app-based world. That's a big difference. It's a big difference. And what the solutions are for us from Telefonica's side is that we said, why can we not create something which is closer to what the open internet we used to use, the World Wide Web internet, looked like, but still is usable on a mobile phone. And we created together with others, with Mozilla Foundation, others, something called Firefox operating system, which is a really open operating system. And this is, and Firefox has the specific functionality that you can download applications which are based on the web. They are HTML5 based, so they're basically using the interface we know from the good old days, so to speak. They are not using proprietary systems. They're not using proprietary app stores or anything like that. So this is a real open system, and we hope that this is a step forward in the marketplace, because we believe that if you think now a step in the future, and you believe that in the future we will use, for example, for the public administration, all kind of services, and we hope that people will do that. This will mean that it needs to be accessible to all. It cannot be only accessible to people who happen to use one or the two leading operating systems. I mean, I can give you an example that today in Madrid I could not pay my parking meter because I happen to be not on Android and on iOS, and they just offer the application for these two operating systems. That's fine for a parking meter, though it's a hassle for me, but it is not fine if you offer now e-health services or whatever else. So we have to wake up to the challenge that we are in a very proprietary world, and this is going forward. It will be a challenge for societies and for our public services to tackle with that. And I think this is the best way forward. How can we create a really fully accessible platform for all? And we're not saying that this means we have to regulate others. This is not saying that we mean that you have to expand regulation like we have it on our side of the industry and the telco industry. That means just that we have to think about this new competitive environment and create the right policy framework for that. And this is really the crucial issue. Why can we not lean back and say, listen, this is a fully new environment, so what kind of policy frameworks do we have? Because what happens is that we have the converged world on the market side, but we don't have it on the policy side. Who's regulating media industries? Who's regulating the telco industry? Who's regulating internet services? These are all different people based on different rules. And I think this will not going forward. It will not work out. The only way to do that is to look at that and say, where do we have competitive bottlenecks, and how can we tackle these then with competition law? Or we create specific frameworks which might do that. But I think in the end it will be based, as others said already, on a strict application of approved competition competition policies we know have worked in other industries, and we can apply to a situation of dominance and bottlenecks, and where people feel that the competitive situation is not sufficient. And in the end, just to end with that, sorry for that. Just to end, I think it will be based on thinking more about making services interoperable. For example, communication services need to be interoperable, like we are used to it from the let's call it old telco world. We can speak about what we call a portable digital life. So people need to be able to go away with data and contents they have to basically switch between different systems. And the best way, it will be based on something which is accessible for all, which is, as we said, from our point of view, something based on HTML5 and the Firefox system. But I mean, others might have different views on that. So I think we have to think about ways how we can tackle and give people a choice to vote with their feet and to use these services cross software. Because we hear a lot, and this is my final comment, we hear a lot about fragmentation of the internet across national borders. I think there is a risk in that, but the bigger risk is that the internet is going to fragment along software borders. Okay, it's along systems where the internet is fragmenting currently. We are creating sub-ecosystems which are basically, for a user, very difficult. I mean, very nice if you're in, but very difficult if you get out of that system. And I think this is, from a competition point of view, an issue which we have to be aware of and we have to work on with the existing tools. Thanks very much.